Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Motivated Podcast for motivation, inspiration, and positivity. If you are new to the Motivated Podcast, don't hesitate. Subscribe to this channel. I'd love to have you as a fellow motivator over here. We talk about various topics. So today we're going in on a very deep topic, and it's never easy to talk about the hard topics, and especially the hard topics when we talk about addiction. When someone you love is an addict. Now, we all know that an addict is someone who has a condition of being an addiction to a certain substance, a thing, or activity. So, whatever that is, we never really like to talk about it, but it's something we do definitely need to talk about. Hey, Goddess D of Love, welcome in. How are you doing? Welcome. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart because I don't know if everybody knows this, but at a period of time in my life, I definitely had an addiction problem, but not in the way that you all would think I was addicted. I had the addiction problem when it came to an eating disorder. And a lot of times we don't think about the addiction as being something like that, but that was my personal addiction. And mine was a food addiction. And I know that there's different forms of addictions. There's the overeating to where it's obesity. Then it's the addiction where, eating a lot of food and then vomiting. But mine was the last one here, right here, anorexic. Um, when I was 14 years old, I was an anorexic. I got down to be 65 pounds. I was 65 pounds for almost 2 years. And I was borderline at the point of not existing anymore. And for me, I can't speak for others, but my issue with having the anorexia, it was the one thing in my life that I could control. Yeah, I couldn't control what was happening amongst my relative. I couldn't control the thoughts that I was having in my mind. But what I could control is how much food I ate. And there's just this notion that people think that once a person is slimmer, that they look better. And that gave me a lot of issues within myself. Hey, baby girl vibes, how are you doing? Welcome. I hope you're well, and I hope everybody else is well as well. Thank you all so much for coming to this very important podcast. I had that, I didn't realize until I got some help that it is a form of an addiction, because The more that I starved myself is the better I thought I looked. So my thinking was not healthy. But I digress. I'm going to get back onto this topic. Talking about addictions, when someone you love is an addict, it's very hard. It's very hard to see somebody you love go down a road and do some things that you're not always happy with. And we want to save our relatives. We want to save our friends from addiction. And one thing about it is that we can't. It's something that it makes you feel powerless. It makes you feel powerless when you have somebody that you love and just processing it, because to us we don't understand why it is that they have this addiction. We tend to make it be like it has everything to do with us, and we're trying to process it and we just don't understand. The thing about it is that we can't think about that person's addiction as having anything to do with us. It's a personal issue. It's something that we personally have to just be our best to be supportive of that person. Yeah, blessings to you, baby girl vibes. Hey, Miss Tamika, how are you doing? Welcome. All we can do is do our best to be supportive of the person that we know has this addiction. And it's very hard to accept it. It's very hard to accept that somebody keeps doing things that causes not only pain to themselves, but causes pain to their own body, that cause them to be in certain situations, because dependent on the addiction, that addiction does other things in their life. But one thing that we definitely have to talk about, which I have to say is a big issue, is, blaming ourselves. When someone we love is an addict, we blame ourselves. We blame ourselves and we think, if I show them more love, if I spend more time with them, that will change them. Or for various, whatever it is that you want to do, we always tend to try to solve it in our way. If I do this or if I do that, that will make them better. The thing about addiction is that a person will continue to be an addict until they want to get some help, until they actually believe they have an addiction, until they actually can say out of their mouth that they have a problem. Hey, Cola, how are you doing? Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope you're doing well. Shout out to the mods. Shout out to my channel members. Yeah, but this is something that we do a lot, right? Every single person, when they're going through something in their life, they blame themselves. They blame themselves. Oh, maybe if I had been a better mother or sister or daughter or brother or father or friend or spouse or somebody in their life, that they wouldn't do what they're doing. And one thing that we have to stop doing is blaming ourselves because of the issues of people that we love. And it's not easy to do. It's very hard to not blame yourself. I was on the other side of that, and I saw, when I had my eating disorder, I saw the pain that it caused people that that loved me. And it's hard to see people that you love hurt. But when you have an addiction, all you think about is yourself. And unfortunately, you're not in the best thinking, right? You don't have the best thoughts. You're only thinking about yourself, and you're just trying your best to cover up the pain, cover up the hurt. That's your way of coping. The addiction is covering the pain, or at least an attempt to, but nothing can ever cover certain things that you go through in your life. Whether it's an addict or a person who is supportive of an addict or loves somebody who is an addict, we have to just do our best in our personal position. What can I do to be supportive? And we're going to talk about some of those things. And one of those things that I have to say is there's types of addictions. And in doing my research on this topic, I was reminded of the addiction that I had. You know, I was addicted to my body image because social media, and at the time, it wasn't social media like we have today. This was in the 90s when I had anorexia, and there wasn't all of these things, but it was still a lot of programming through the TV, how you should look. And especially me being a melanated little girl, and we're kind of built differently, different, you know, we have wider hips. We're not going to look the same as somebody else. So my issue having that eating disorder, being anorexic, I had to come to terms with what I thought about myself. Um, and it wasn't a good thing. I always looked at other people. I looked at the TV, I looked at other relatives, and I definitely thought other people were prettier, you know, more beautiful. I never saw my own looks as being something nice or pretty. And it's very understandable the reason why I had it, because I had to go into a deep dive into myself and and face it. Because if you don't face those painful things, you will continue to have an addiction. And it took me almost losing my life to come to terms with that. Another time where I could have um, not been here anymore, but through God's loving kindness, I still am. And I'm very appreciative of it. So I knew after I got over on the other side of having my eating disorder, I was always going to talk about it. And I can say that having the eating disorder had nothing to do with other people. I had that because I had my eating disorder. I was anorexic because of me trying to control how I looked. I wanted to look like other people, and I had to learn how to love myself. And loving yourself is a whole journey in life. It's taking all of the painful things that happened to you, and a lot of things that happened to me in my life that I'm not going to cover on here, but I had some very painful things that happened to me that caused me to not even want to eat. I just personally had given up. And when people started to say, "You look good. You're looking really good," it was not good for me because it only fostered in me that desire to do that more. Well, if you think I look good now, it got to be where I couldn't stop. I got to be at my lowest 65 pounds, and me being 5'5" and 65 pounds. That's very dangerous. At any time, I could have, you know, not been around anymore. But yeah, that's my story. So let's also talk about the other food addictions, overeating. And we see the shows, My 600-Pound Life, or maybe we know somebody who has an addiction to food, an unhealthy use of food. And some of them are bulimics, some are not. The difference between a bulimic and a person who overeats, a person who overeats just eats, but a bulimic person eats and then regurgitates the food, um, because of the guilt, because, not wanting to hold on to everything that they just ate. So that's definitely an addiction, and it's something that only through getting help you can get through it. Another addiction is drinking alcohol, or other substances. In doing my research, I found out there's a lot of, things that people drink other than alcohol. People become addicted to drinking mouthwash, or, that, what do they call that? Non-food items. They drink that. Also, another addiction could be, huffing, where people breathe in the steam of, things that are not good, like air fresheners and things like that. Or some people have an addiction like pica, where they eat like toilet paper, things that are food items. But addictions are real. And I know that somebody knows somebody who has an addiction to alcohol. Sometimes it goes to the extreme where certain individuals lose their homes, lose their life because of drinking. Maybe their liver goes out, or maybe they get involved in a DUI, and, and then they're no longer here. They've unalived themselves. Or maybe we know somebody who has an addiction, but their addiction has caused them to be behind bars. And I have to acknowledge those people. I have to acknowledge every single individual. Um, there's many things that people are enduring, things that they have kind of pushed to the background, and some of them could be the reason why they have that addiction is because of things that happened to them in their life, traumas, um, painful situations in their life, grief, feelings of worthlessness. A lot of things can cause people to start an addiction, because addictions is just something to help to cover up the pain that they're experiencing inside. Yes, baby girl vibes. Addictions are real. And if you, as a human being, have never experienced, if you have never had an addiction, you can't understand really what it's like. It's not that maybe a person doesn't want to stop having an addiction to, drugs, alcohol, whatever the addiction is. It's just that the addiction has overtaken them. They can't stop it, because they're used to the high that they feel when they either drink, when they do the drugs, when they have that addiction to, that food. It does something to them. It releases some substances in their brain that makes them get to that high. So that's the reason why they continue. And it's not something that they can stop without help. But the thing about addictions is, a person stays an addict until they can first admit it to themselves that they have a problem, and then past that, admitting that they have an issue, seeking help. And unfortunately, many people are not here any longer because of, they have never got to make it be because of overdose. And this is a hard thing to talk about, because working in healthcare, I've seen people who have OD'd, and one of the worst calls you can ever make is calling a family member, calling a friend, calling their spouse, and saying they didn't make it, because this time it was the end. They fell victim to their addiction. So with love and an open heart, I express my condolences to everyone who has lost a family member, a friend, somebody that they knew, and maybe you never even knew that person had an addiction. The thing about it is that we usually see the extremes of the people who have addictions that are homeless or whatever, something like that. But there are people who you call functioning addicts, where they just drink just enough, or they just do enough drugs, or they just do enough whatever it is, but they still are able to hold down a job. They still have not lost their home, but they still are an addict. Because if you can't stop drinking, or you can't stop eating, or you can't stop doing things like that, you definitely have a problem. And this is one that is a particularly hard subject to talk about. If you have a loved one, and imagine having a brother, a sister, a mom, a cousin that is a pedophile, you know, either the pedophile, like addicted to pornography, addicted to um, doing certain harmful things to young children. Whew. It's hard. It's hard to know somebody and love somebody that you can't stop them from being sick. You can't stop them from being sick in the head. You can't stop them from the harm. You can't stop them from the embarrassment. Hi, I bring it every day. How are you doing? Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. You can't stop that person from being a pedophile. You can't stop that person from cheating. You can't stop the person from whatever sexual addiction that person has. And let me just say it, that it's not just men. That's a big stereotype, that the ones with sexual addictions are always men. Women have sexual addictions too. Um, Women need help too. This is not shots at anybody. I'm just putting it out there that there are some women and there are some men that have a big problem. They have a major problem with sexual addiction. So if you have a family member, a friend, somebody that you know that has a sexual addiction, it's hard to see it. It's hard to deal with it because it's so very disgusting to us, right? We don't want to be acquainted with these individuals, but it still doesn't stop that person from being your relative. It doesn't stop that person from being a friend, or a former friend, or a former associate. Because one thing definitely I'm not going to tolerate is someone who messes around with young kids, those who will have addiction to pornography, those who have addiction to little kids, messing around with little kids. We all knew that a person who was really creepy growing up, or weird, but back in the day, we didn't have conversations like this and talk about it. That uncle, or that cousin, or that person in your neighborhood is just sick. They're just weird. But these days we know them as pedos. And, it's so important that we warn our children about these sick individuals, and to tell our children that it's not always a stranger. Most of the time, the ones that have these addictions to being a perverted person, sick in the head, is somebody that we know. Is somebody you know. Most of the time, a person who goes out and assaults a young child is a person in your own family, your own relative. you know, mess up a child for the rest of their life, even into their adulthood. And to anybody who has ever been a victim of sexual assault, molestation, mm, or you have a relative or somebody that you know that is sick with a sexual addiction, you know, they need help. And you just not wanting to talk about it, or you feeling uncomfortable, or you just say, oh, that's how uncle or cousin is, it's really not good. It's really, you don't know how many lives that they are ruining. They're ruining the lives of so many children. Maybe even they have children. And yeah, and things and you see things. See, back in the day, what people used to do is cover up everything, right? Not really want to talk about, not really want to talk about this, right? But it's something that is real, that I have to open up my mouth and be a voice of the voiceless. I know so many young girls, young boys that have been victims of sexual crimes. But back in the day, you didn't talk about it. Things are different now. Now there's awareness. Now they have hotlines. Now there's, support. But back in the day, it wasn't those things. It wasn't that sort of support. And to anybody who has ever been a victim of any of these things, my heart goes out to you. I hope you reach out and get some support. I hope you talk to somebody. Let me welcome those who have just come in. Shout out to writers, Miss Rachel. How are you doing, Miss Rachel? How are you doing, Miss Tracy? Welcome in. Hi, Miss Deborah. How are you all doing? Thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys so much for your support. And knowing a relative or a family member or somebody, somebody in the neighborhood, and they're creepy. You got to have conversations with the young children in your family. And I know that is an uncomfortable conversation to say to your child or cousin, that it's not always somebody you don't know. It's usually somebody you will know. And nobody has the right to put their hands or on you, touch you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, touch your private parts, even if it's your own relative. There's a lot of times that I've heard that the ones that are doing those things, it could be your own parent, it could be a aunt, a cousin, an associate of the family. Yeah, and these people are sick and twisted, very sick and twisted. So, have the conversations with your children or young ones in your family, and have those conversations on a regular basis, that it's okay. You can talk to me about anything. The communication lines have to be open with our youth, and not to blame them, not to, embarrass them, but to be supportive and let them know that whatever happens here, you can talk to me about it. You're safe. You don't have to be scared. Okay. And I also have to talk about, an addiction to cheating. Unfortunately, a lot of women, a lot of men are victim to having somebody that they care about, being in a relationship with somebody who's a serial cheater. They can't keep it in their pants. They can't stop, and it's many ways, the sexual addiction. It could be looking at pornography. It could be doing the actual act, of sexually cheating, you know. It's very painful when it happens to you. But I just want to put that out there, that it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. Somebody who has these sort of addictions, the messed up in their head like this, they are the ones that need help. Listening in as a survivor. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, writers. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yes, you guys are welcoming each other in. I hate to say it like this, but a lot of times, unfortunately, there's not a lot of open conversations and communication when it comes to addiction and the pain of when a relative, when a friend, when somebody you know is a pedo, when somebody you know has an addiction to cheating, um, when they're like people who are messed up in the head. Hey, Colton, how are you doing? Welcome. It's not okay. I just want to say that on my platform, it's not okay. It's not all right. And there, you're safe here to have the conversations that a lot of people don't want to talk to. Also, something else happened to me in my life when I was younger that caused me to. It's one of the reasons why I started to have that, anorexia, and I didn't even realize it, but sometimes the things that happen to us in our childhood, we push it to the back and we ignore it, and it causes us to start doing some harmful things to ourselves, to not speak up, not seek help, because it's not something that happens where we come from. It's not something that is supported. It's not something that's encouraged. And other people will tell you that you're not telling the truth, that you're lying, that they would never do something like that. Or they lied and say, I didn't do anything like that. So it puts you in a situation that you're not supported in it. So you kind of keep it to yourself. But that is not a good thing. Keep holding the pain of someone messing with you, somebody touching you, somebody assaulting you, somebody, doing something painful to you in your childhood. If you don't speak on that, if you don't seek some help, you're going to find other ways to cover that pain. And I never thought that that was true, but it is, coming from a person. I got away from the trauma that happened to me in my childhood. And I did something like having anorexia because it was something that I can control. I think it also was a call for help. Um, and I felt like that was the only way for myself to be seen. Sometimes it takes you coming right to almost the brink of losing your life before other people who know you will actually see like what is going on with them. And uh, this one is tough. Talking about somebody you love who has a drug addiction. Um, Whatever that drug that they have chose, you know, it's not good. A person who will rather the drug than their own life, rather the drug than all the pain that they cause, the broken relationships that they make because they're so sick, because they're trying their best to cover up, because taking a drug is easier for them, right? Taking a drug is easier than facing whatever painful thing happened to that individual. And I don't know one person that doesn't have a form of an addiction that hasn't been through something that they've been covering up their whole life. And my heart breaks for those who have an addiction. So when this podcast ends, I'm definitely going to put some 1-800 numbers for sources of support and help, not only for those with the addiction, but also the relative, the friends, the family, the spouses, girlfriends, and boyfriends of those who have an addiction, because everybody needs support. Let me go to the chat, see if I missed anything. Yes, Tracy, and that's not a good thing. We never tell. We never tell those things, and you know, maybe not today. I'm still sure that these things are going on still today, but back in the day, it was always told like, you keep this to your grave, you take this to the grave. We will never speak on this, like it never happened. So you're just supposed to go on with your life, like whatever whatever happened to you didn't happen. You know, you keep those things to yourself. And it could be the reason for some people go through major bouts of depression, major bouts of harmful addictions. And some people, they get more than one addiction because of things from their past, traumatic events in their life. You know, it could be more than one thing. A person can have multiple addictions, sexual addictions, drug addictions, food addictions. Yeah, so many things that a person can be addicted to, that can be so harmful to them. And like I said earlier, sometimes it takes a person going and getting incarcerated before maybe they get some support. Maybe that's the first time in their life, maybe crashing the car, maybe, you know, going into the system. This is the first time where maybe now they can't get those substances that they want to. Maybe they have to stop drinking. Maybe now is the first time in their life they're going to be like, get a consequence for whatever it is that they do. Because I'm not saying this it to throw shots at anybody, but the reality of it is a lot of times those who have addictions, by us not saying anything, by us keeping quiet about it and not saying, I'm not going to give you money, I'm not going to support you in doing this. If you don't get help, I can't deal with you any longer. And I know that that's a hard thing to say, but being a person that knows somebody with an addiction, if you don't do something to cut it off, like giving them money, you know what that money is going to go to. You know that money is going to go to an addiction. Um, and they would rather get that addiction, right? They rather get whatever that is that they're addicted to than get food, than get a job. But they tell us so many lies. They do so do so many things, you know, hurt people and steal from us and uh break that trust bond, and on and on and on it goes. Everybody's situation and story is different, but there's a lot of pain when someone you love has an addiction. And right now we're talking about those that we love that have an addiction to some substance. Could be um, cocaine, could be, what do they call that? Can't think of the name right now, but a lot of heroin. It's a lot of drugs that a person could be addicted to, or it could be the person's addicted to pills. And sometimes that addiction doesn't come on by that person's choice. Sometimes it takes a person maybe being in a car accident, or maybe having a health problem where they have a lot of pain. And then that person gets addicted to painkillers. So, not everybody who gets hooked on substances is because of the choice. They start taking those pills, popping those pills because they're just trying to cope with the amount of pain that they have. So, it's something major. It's something major and something very important to have conversations about. Hi, actually, Aubrey podcast. Welcome. How are you doing? And I think that this is a very important conversation to have. If somebody you know and you love has an addiction to drugs, to alcohol, to food, and many more. I may not have covered every single thing that there is an addiction to. And as always, if I'm leaving out some form of addiction, please always, I'm open to whatever it is that you know of. Everybody has a different story, everybody has a different journey, everybody has been through different things, and it may not always be somebody you know. It may be somebody you know of, maybe somebody in your spiritual family, maybe it's somebody you know of in the neighborhood, it could be a coworker. But addiction faces almost everybody, whether if it's not us as a person that we become addicted to something, or is it that somebody we know has an addiction. And this is the next addiction that I'm going to talk about, is an addiction where people will say that's not a true addiction, but it actually is. And it's this one. A person who is addicted to people pleasing, addicted to making everybody happy. And it really is the always wanting to be so open to making everybody happy, making everybody joyful. That's not a good thing, you know. People who are called brown nosers, the ones that never know how to say no. That is an addiction that some people just can't stop, because at the end of the day, they don't put themselves first. They don't think about themselves. And if I'm really 100% honest, I had this addiction too, at the cost of my own self, at the cost of my own well being, at the cost of my mental health. I always thought about making everybody happy, making my relatives happy, being the number one, right? On the job, being number one with relatives, being number one, for those of you who have children, putting everybody above yourself and making everybody else happy, but you never will 100% make everybody happy. It's impossible. It's impossible to make everybody happy. We definitely have to think about making ourselves happy and taking care of ourselves. But when you have been so used to being a person to doing for everybody, for enabling relatives, for enabling your children, for enabling coworker, for enabling a spouse or person you're in a relationship with, or your relatives, because it's very addictive that you want to please them, you want to make them happy, but you're so miserable, you're so unhappy. And in the midst of making everybody happy, you are unhappy, and then it could cause you to start having a form of addiction. So it's not good. And this is the reason why I wanted to definitely have this conversation over here on the Motivated Podcast, to be a source of openness about this sort of conversation, that this is happening in our very own communities. It's the people that we don't think, it's the people that you see with the beautiful homes and the cars, and within their home, they could be having addiction. They could be having all sorts of issues, and lots of problems with themselves. Not knowing how to communicate things, or hiding things. And I can say, having somebody that I know with an addiction for many years, just hiding that and just saying, oh, they'll be okay. They'll get better, right? How many of us are guilty of saying that? They'll get better, they'll stop when they want to, but we have to be the one that have to want to process it, and say, this person has a problem. That's part of accepting it, that this person is sick and I can't fix them. That's it's not our job to fix other people who have addictions. It's hurtful, it's painful, it's embarrassing, it's frustrating, it's all of those things. But also, I want to talk for a few minutes to those who have addiction. And I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to make you feel bad about yourself. But I just want you to know that maybe nobody in your life has ever told you that you're wonderful. Nobody has ever told you that you were loved. Um, you people in your life maybe were the only ones that caused you nothing but pain. Maybe some of the things that you've seen you should not have seen, especially at a young age in your childhood. Maybe the people that you trusted the most hurt you the most, right? We all know people like that. You you never would think that your family member, that a friend, that an associate of the family, that a workmate, that um, somebody in your spiritual community would do something because you let your guard down. You trusted them, and then they violated your trust. They violated your heart. They violated you in some type of way. And I want you to know that help is out there for you if you want it. And there's no judgments. I just want anybody who has an addiction, anybody who has relative or friends that have an addiction, one thing I want you to know is don't blame yourself. Okay? Don't blame yourself. Every person is a human being. Every single person has issues. And whether you are the person who needs the help or you're a person who is supporting that victim, you want them to get better. One of the best things that you can do is you got to ask yourself, what is it that I am doing that is aiding in them having the addiction? That's one thing that I had to admit to myself too. Is that yes, while a person has an addiction, we sometimes are aiding them to continue in it by ignoring it. Ignoring a person who has a form of addiction is not going to help them. Um, we don't like to talk about it. We hate to admit it that a family member, a friend, a spouse, a friend, somebody that you know is sick. And it's not us. It's not because we're a bad person. It's not because they're a bad person either, but they have some issues, and the issues can only be resolved by seeking professional help. And yes, it's wonderful to, stand in the gap for them and to, give spiritual support. Prayers do go a long way, but we have to let that person know they have a problem. You have a problem, and I'm no longer going to support you by giving you money. I'm no longer going to do this or that. I'm no longer going to keep quiet. And within the family dynamic, we see a lot of things sometimes that is not good. We see the ones that are sick, you know, with their addictions. And we just say that's the way they are, right? We give them a pass. You wave your hand and just say that's how they are. But what are we doing in that process? Are you aiding in them getting better, or are you assisting them to continue to have this addiction? And by remaining silent, by not saying, I'm here to support you, but I'm no longer going to help you, I'm not going to keep silent. I'm going to keep telling you over and over again, you need help. I'm going to keep telling you, I'm not going to buy you. I'm not going to give you money. I'm not going to do things that are going to aid you in continuing in your addiction. And that's one of the best things that you can do for someone who has an addiction. One of the best things that we can do to support someone who is an addict is, number one, by telling them that they have an issue and a problem. Now, it's not up to us, right? It's not up to us to say, you know, they're going to change. That change has to become inside of them. Inside of them, they have to want to say, I have to stop doing this because it's hurting me, because it's causing pain to not only myself but people who love me. They have to want to stop. They have to want to seek help. They have to want to make some changes in their life, and it's not up to us. And it's so hard to see somebody that you love with an addiction, because you never know if it's going to be the last time that you're going to see them. You never know. You always think that the next phone call is going to say they didn't make it because they gave into the addiction. But to all of those who are, have somebody that they know and love with an addiction, don't blame yourself. Make sure you're getting some support through it. Don't think that you have to cope with, the pain, the hurt on your own. So whether you join a support group online, for whatever it is that your loved one has, or, getting yourself an amazing therapist, and getting your spiritual support, or a combination of all of it, whether we are the person who has the addiction, or whether you are the family, the friend, the spouse, the coworker of somebody that you know with an addiction. Everybody needs support through it. Everybody needs support through it. So I just wanted to have this conversation to let you all know that, we are not alone. We're not alone in somebody we love, or maybe if it's ourselves, if we have an addiction to something, you are not alone and you can get help. I encourage anybody who has an addiction to get help until you get the right help. Don't give up. Don't let anybody tell you that what your pain was bigger than the problem. And there are a lot of variables that come into it. Admitting it to yourself, admitting that you have a problem, admitting that I can't do this on my own, then seeking some help. Talking about it, having conversations, and talking about whatever hurt you that is your source of pain would definitely help you to get on the other side of the addiction and to become a survivor. And I want that for anybody who is listening now live or in the replay. I definitely want for you to be on the side of being a survivor, okay, and not a victim. See, you can go from victim to victorious just by making the choice that I can overcome this. So know that you don't have to battle all of this alone, and you can make it through. Because I've seen it every day. I see people, working in the healthcare field. I see people who don't make it, who don't survive this, because it's not something as easy as saying, I want to stop. You have to get your why. You got to get your why in place. Why do you want to stop? What is your reason and purpose for existing? And to those who have a loved one with an addiction, gaining support is vital for you coping with it. Okay. So that's what I came on to say. I put the link in here for anybody who has something that, do you have a loved one that has an addiction, my heart goes out to you. And if you are an addict, and, like I said earlier, you can be a functioning addict. It doesn't have to be where other people will know. But if you have to have a drink, if you have to have that drug, if you have to have that food, if you have to have that sex, like you have to have it. Hmm. But it could be a reason, and you have to get to why do you have to have these things in order to cope with your life? So this is one of the hard conversations that I have, and I usually do these on podcasts because I'm a mess. Tears are streaming down my face. It's hard to be open because, unfortunately, some people don't make it into the survivors of somebody that you knew that didn't make it through addiction. It's never easy. And I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be easy to survive that pain. But don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. But it's important that you find support so that you don't internalize it, so that you don't start having some mental health issues because you blame yourself for their addiction. So, yeah, shout out to everybody who came through today. Thank you guys so much for coming through and for listening. Thank you so much for your support. Like I always say, you never know what somebody is going through, either going through or has been through. So be kind to others, and be good to yourself. If you are an addict and you need help, I'm going to put the numbers for some support in the comment section below as soon as this live gets processed. And to those who have a family member, a friend, a spouse, a sibling with an addiction, get some support as well. We usually think of support only for the victim, but as relatives, friends, or family members, to see it, to watch it, and to feel helpless, we have to have something that we do with it. And we also have to stop enabling those in addiction so that they can get better and stay better. I thank you guys so much for supporting today's podcast. It really does mean a lot to me. And I hope that this podcast reaches whoever it needs to reach. I felt inspired to talk about this, and I will be talking about more hard topics on Mondays on the Motivated podcast, just so that you guys can understand that while motivation and inspiration is definitely important, I do that from Tuesdays to Thursdays, but on Mondays, we're going to go into the hard and the uncomfortable conversations that most people don't want to have. So I thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you're watching in the replay, is it you? Is it somebody with an addiction? You don't have to go through it alone. There's support, there's light, there's hope, and there is peace. And I'm going to get out of here. I thank you guys so much for supporting this. Please share this out. Give this podcast a like and leave a comment in the comment section below. My heart is with all of you, and know that you're not alone. Thank you for tuning in today. And I'll see you guys tomorrow when we do the dose of positivity. You know what I say over here? Just know it. Just breathe it and be it and live your best life.
Be encouraged. Be be inspired. Be yourself, you will survive. Just know it, just breathe it, and be it, and live your best life.
Forgive me, I love me. I've been blessed that I have made it through. I'm stronger and worthy. I am enough now. What about you? I forgive me, I love me. I've been blessed that I have made it through. I'm stronger and worthy. I am enough now. What about you?